What's up? What's up? What's the deal? Right now, we're about to get into Mary Peake, one of the beginning or one of the founders of Hampton University. Mary Peake. All right, let's do it. This here is Mary Peake. Mary Peake remind me of the female on a different world. Y'all know what I'm talking about for the ones that's old enough to remember? By Bill Cosby. I think the name of the college was called Hillman or something like that. But I think the girl name was Whitney. And a lot of times she used to try to help Dwayne with his work and all that type of stuff, if I'm mistaken. It reminds me of this character. Even though I think that college was based on Bethune-Cookman. Okay, but this is her. All right, so now let's learn about her. Mary Smith Peake. Born Mary Smith Kelsey, 1823, February 22nd, 1862, was an American teacher, humanitarian, and a member of the Black elite in Hampton. Right? She was a member of the Black elite in Hampton. Best known for starting a school for the children of former slaves starting in the fall of 1861 under what became known as the Emancipation Oak. Well, the Emancipation Oak Tree in present-day Hampton, Virginia, near Fort Monroe. My bad, y'all. I be thinking while I'm reading. That's my fault. But I know y'all reading along. So yeah, it was the Emancipation Oak Tree in present-day Hampton, Virginia, near Fort Monroe. The first teacher hired by the American Missionary Association. She was also associated with its later founding of Hampton's University in 1868, right? It said the first teacher hired by the American Missionary Association. She was also associated with its later founding of Hampton University, in 1868. Understand this now. So she had already been doing her thing under what they call the Emancipation Oak Tree in 1823, I guess, I suppose. Well, whatever, when she died. Well, she was born in 1823 and died in 1862. But yeah, she was doing her thing with the Emancipation Oak Tree or whatnot. And then they built up Hampton University, basically. And she was the first teacher. And the people that helped them build this up was the American Missionary Association. I need to put that, maybe that shit be, I don't know. But yeah. So we see what's going on right here. So y'all already know. You go do your research on Mary S. Peake. I'm just giving y'all a quick rundown in the WIC, give y'all a general idea of what they're saying and what they're talking about. But of course, if you look more into it, you're going to find a lot more information. That's pretty much common sense, right? Get some more details. So we see what's going on. Early life and education. They say Mary Smith Kelsey was born free in Norfolk, Virginia. So off the rip, she was free. So it lets you know that all Black people were not slaves, for the ones that do not know that by now. Mary Smith Kelsey was born free in Norfolk, Virginia. Her father was an Englishman, right, of rank and culture. That's in quotation mark. In rank and culture, right? Of rank and culture. So it lets you know that you do not necessarily have to be what they call white or even black for that matter to be considered an Englishman. You just had to be where you didn't have to be, but if you were of rank or of culture, you could be considered to be Englishman. Like you could self-identify right now today as whatever you please. Whatever you decide to follow, you can be that. So that means he followed the culture and the ways of the Englishman. So therefore, he considered himself as an Englishman, right? And they say, and her mother was a free woman of color, described as light-skinned. Okay, so her mom and her daddy was black. That's basically what it's telling you. They say when Mary was 6, her mother sent her to Alexandria, then part of the District of Columbia, to attend school. So sent her off to a boarding school, basically. Or she was forced to go to one. But basically, they probably basically sent her to one because I think all the elite back then were the ones going to these schools so they could have the upper hand, learn English and translate their language into translate the English language or whatever, or Latin, or whatever they were speaking back then. They were basically the translators, the educators, basically. For the ones who didn't know, they came back to teach. So they go learn, come back and teach their people what they learned and convert their folks. That's what their job was. That is what their job was. Okay. Now, it say, and her mother, free woman of color, described as light skinned. When Mary was 6, her mother at Alexandria Case, District of Columbia, attended school. Living with her aunt Mary Payne, Kelsey studied for about 10 years. So she went out to what they call the District of Columbia, to a place called Alexandria. She lived with her auntie, Mary Payne, right, for 10 years studying. Excuse me. They think she necessarily studied for 10 years. Lived with her for 10 years, but her education took 10 years, long enough to brainwash her. You know, they say the U.S. Congress enacted a law prohibiting free people of color in the District of Columbia from being educated, as was the case in Virginia and several other southern states, right? Say the U.S. Congress enacted a law prohibiting free people of color in the District of Columbia from being educated, as was the case in Virginia and several other southern states. Okay, I want y'all to understand this too about this southern state stuff, right? You had the upper South and you had the lower South. So they're talking about the upper South. Okay. So it's this was several years. This was several years before Alexandria. Hold on. Damn shit, too big. It said this was several years before Alexandria was was retroceded to Virginia in 1846. District of Columbia from being educated. That don't even read right there. Yeah, okay. Now I say District of Columbia from being educated, as was the cause in Virginia and several other states. Okay, I do something wrong. All right. It said the new law closed all schools for free blacks in that city, as had happened in Virginia after the Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831. Okay. So now, let me read that again. So since I knew I was skipping, let me see something. It's a District of Columbia from being educated, as was the case in Virginia and several other southern states. They say this was several years before Alexandria was retroceded to Virginia in 1846. They say the new law closed all schools for free blacks in that city, as had happened in Virginia after the Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831. Okay, so I guess they're saying they followed suit. Okay, so now Kelson was doing that thing in what year? Down there said say. Well, I think let me keep reading. It said in 1839, at age 16, Mary Kelsey returned to live with her mother. Despite the risk, she secretly taught slaves and free blacks how to read and write, which was prohibited by law. Okay, in 1839. So, in 1831, that's when they pretty much did that. They're dealing with Nat Turner situation. All right, y'all see what's going on? So she came back down in 1839. She was 16. So how old was she when she got her education? Education. Excuse me. Help start this school. My bad for coughing in y'all got dang ill. But yeah, man. All right. So say let's read it. I gotta be smarter, y'all. Hope y'all be able to see it, but I don't want to keep on hope I be able to goddamn. This shit, they don't got this. My bad, y'all. I leave it big like this here. But for some reason, it's not aligning with the paper. I've been having to slide back and forth, but it's all good. I can muscle on through it, though. It's almost over anyway. I got to read this last part about our career. We're finna get this thing over with. For real, though. But it's already a pretty interesting story. So, like I said, y'all need to go look into it on your own. You know what you choose to do. Damn, what was I'm trying to find my goddamn lighter. Trying to find my lighter right quick. There we go. Watch your ears. About to strike. All right. Fine up. Get my fire up on and walk the rest of this on through. We'll say Hampton that we bought a house in 1980. Let's see. Let me start over. Right, say she returned to live with her mother. Despite the risk, she secretly taught slaves and free blacks to read and write, which was prohibited by law. She believed education was more important. Was important to the race. Said 1847, her married mother, Thompson Walker, and the family moved to Hampton, where they bought a house. In the 1850s, she secretly began teaching enslaved and free Black Americans, and she was one of a number of Black women whose teaching was a few years later officially sanctioned by the Union Army as the United States entered the Civil War. They say there, Kelsey founded a women's charitable organization called the Daughters of Zion. Excuse me. So this lady started the Daughters of Zion. They say whose mission was to assist the poor and sick. She supported herself chiefly by dressmaking and continued to teach in secret. Among her adult students was her stepfather, Thompson Walker, who even more became a leader of the blacks in Hampton, right? It said her stepfather, Thomas Walker, who even more became a leader of the blacks in Hampton. So that's another person to look into. They say in 1851, Kelsey married Thomas Peake, a freed slave who worked in the merchant marine. So it's a free slave named Thomas Peake, they say, right, who worked in the merchant marine. They had a daughter named Hattie, whom they nicknamed Daisy. During the American Civil War, 1861-1865, Union forces maintained control of nearby Fort Monroe, which became a place of refuge for escaped slaves seeking asylum. The Union defined them as contraband, a legal status to prevent their being returned to Confederate slaveholders. They built the Grand Contraband Camp near but outside the protection of Fort Monroe. So that's another key thing to look up, I guess. Fort Monroe, um, the Grand Contraband Camp. And I say Mary Peake started teaching the children of former slaves and American missionaries Association. So let me read it again. Say, Mary Peake started teaching the children of former slaves, and the American Missionary Association (AMA) paid her some salary and gave support as its first black teacher. She began teaching outside on September 17, 1861, under a large tree in Phoebus, a small town nearby in Elizabeth City County. In 1863, the Virginia Peninsula community gathered under this tree to hear the first Southern reading of President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, and it became known as the Emancipation Oak. Soon, the AMA provided Peake with Brown Cottage, long desired the first facility of Hampton Institute. Oh, I'm sorry, I said long desired. I said long considered, right? It said soon the AMA provided Peake with Brown Cottage, long considered the first facility of Hampton Institute and later Hampton University. All right, understand that, y'all. At first, it was called Brown Cottage before it became known as Hampton Institute, which became Hampton University. Okay, so this Brown Cottage was the first facility, considered to be the first facility unofficially. All right, so it say both children and adults were eager to learn. Mary Peake's school taught more than 50 children during the day and 20 adults at night. Talk about day school, night school, I suppose. It said, although seriously ill, Peake continued teaching. On Washington's birthday, February 22nd, 1862, Peake died of tuberculosis, which she had contracted before the war. The historic Emancipation Oak still stands near the entrance to the campus of Hampton University in what is now the city of Hampton. They say the historic Emancipation Oak still stands near the entrance to the campus of Hampton University in what is now the city of Hampton. It is designated a national historic landmark by the Department of Interior and one of the great trees of the world by the National Geographic Society. Ain't that something? Okay. This tree right here is on September 17, 1861. Mary Smith Peake taught the first classes to African American children on the grounds of present-day Hampton University under what became called the Emancipation Oak. But now understand now, when we're talking about Hampton, we already know the background on Hampton, that we're talking about the Indian schools that say, y'all know what the real deal is. They just calling us African just to put everybody into one class system with dark skin, you know what I'm saying, as African. But at the same time, to take you away from your natural roots. And anyway, that's another story. There's a whole nother thing. I'm just trying to stick to the topic. Mary Peake. All right, but y'all understand what she is all about and how this thing started. Let me check out the Daughters of Zion right quick since I got y'all on here. See, they ain't showing too much about that, I suppose. All right, so as we can see, they ain't really showing nothing about that there. All right. But yeah, that's how. What else was it? I want to show y'all. That's probably it, man. I think that was enough information to get y'all about this sister, even though it was all for the good of the elite to brainwash the people into mental slavery. You know what I mean? But until next time, I holler at y'all. Holla.